All right. Good morning, everybody. Thanks for taking the time to join us on the Flow webinar. We have 70 people already on the call. We're expecting over 100. Great attendance and clearly a very notable topic to discuss. With me this morning is Dean Stander, Alon Rom, and Zach Nossel from Traffic Brand, Hello Peter, and Woolworths, respectively. I thought we'll kick off this morning just by each of you guys just giving a bit of background of who you are, how do you get to this point, and then we'll kick it off. So, Dean, I'll start with you.
Thanks, Daniel. Great to be here. Yeah, so I'm Dean. Going on 4 years working for Traffic Brand as a senior paid media specialist. I started my journey with Synergize back in the day, working in SEO. And then from there, went into the paid media space and have been around for the last about 11 years. Traffic Brand's been around for about 18 years, and our primary focus is in paid media, which is enforced by a well-established analytics division as well.
Thanks, Dean. Zach, over to you.
How's it, everyone? Thanks, Daniel and the Flow team for having me here today. Feels like a privilege to be able to speak about this. My name's Zach. I'm the head of digital marketing at Woolworths. I started my trade in traditional advertising for Deutsch and Lowe in New York and Ogilvy in Joburg, and then made my way into quite a retail-focused world, the sort of beginnings of Superbalist, very e-commerce focused, and then had the privilege of joining Woolworths about 10 years ago, and have been at the center of starting Woolworths' internal digital media capabilities. So building an in-house team to facilitate the communication objectives of the business.
Thanks, Zach. Al?
How's it, Dan? And thanks for having me together with the Flow team. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm Alon. I started my career actually as a derivative trader, and came a point in my life where living in the matrix wasn't what I wanted to do. So I got involved in business, landed up investing in Mr. Delivery back in the day, and ran that together with a partner. We had a rapid growth period and landed up selling it to Takealot, and then eventually on to Naspers. And at that point in time, it was a little bit too corporate for me as an entrepreneur. I decided to look for something else, looked for and found Hello Peter. It was a very similar kind of sort of background to Mr. Delivery, a kind of big brand, underutilized, people using it by default rather than choice, and kind of saw a very similar dynamic with Hello Peter, and felt that there was a lot of opportunity with the business. And it's been on this journey for about 7 years, and making some good progress.
Thanks, Al. For those of you who don't know me, my background is I used to be a commercial attorney. I left that just under 20 years ago, started a business called Popeye Media with some partners. We're an ad tech company, essentially represented large Fortune 500 businesses in terms of enabling them to advertise on various different social channels, Facebook, then Instagram, Twitter. We exited that company to Publicis in 2015, and off the back of that started Flow. Flow today is very much in the data ad tech space, and we've been trailblazing what we believe is highly innovative in the market. And throughout that journey, I've naturally met you guys around the table, and that brings us on to the topic today. How do we beat big budgets with first-party data? So as a lead-up to big spending on Black Friday, which follows through to December, the question is, how do big brands compete with big budgets with first-party data? Dean, maybe let me turn to you. Why don't you just give us a rudimentary understanding of first-party data, second-party data, and third-party data?
Sure. So first-party data basically just refers to the information that a company collects directly from its own customers or users. Preferably, that needs to be POPIA compliant. So your second-party data audience, that is essentially just first-party data that another organization shares with you. And then third-party data audiences refers to the information collected by organizations that do not have a direct relationship with the individuals it pertains to.
Great. So that gives good context to the discussion this morning. What is your take on the high budget competitors like Temu and Shane's entrance and their dominance in the ad space and the impact that it's having on local brands to reach the same audience? I mean, I read an article recently where it gave a view of Facebook's performance over the last quarter, and analysts had to take a view whether their performance in growth was actually true organic performance relative to brands of this nature pumping in billions of dollars into ad spend and actually manipulating value.
Yeah, listen, I think there's still a lot of room to play in our market, right? South African I still think it's an emerging market. And if anything, with these international brands entering our space, it exposes more customers to online shopping, right? The trick is to kind of remain competitive. And I think in order to do that, we just need to make sure that with our campaigns, we refine our targeting and messaging. And most importantly, we ensure that we've got high quality products and good service delivery. With these guys entering the market and having big budgets, naturally you'll see your CPMs kind of rise and things becoming a little bit more expensive. But by applying some refinement to your targeting and having proper messaging, that'll help you lower those costs, specifically when it relates to acquisitions.
Thanks. Just before I carry on, there's a question and answer section. So throughout the session over here, if you want to post any questions for any of the panelists, please do so. We'll get to it at the end. Zach, just leading on to what Dean said, I mean, Woolworths is a massive, massive brand. The company's been around for almost 100 years. I was reading up about it. How do big brands like Woolworths deal with this? Now, what are the strategies and the tactics you're deploying to compete with these big spenders?
Yeah, great question. And I think something important to establish is that global brands have been a challenge for us long before the arrival of Shein and Temu. So we've been aware of this accessibility to shopping international brands before they arrived kind of in our faces in the way that they have from a digital marketing perspective. And what the added challenge from these two specific big spenders is their actual budgets in comparison to us. And not only just their budgets, but how meticulously they've aligned themselves with the various networks and the network capabilities. So both big spenders starting off a sort of zero base and being able to embed their technologies with the networks, as the book says. So a couple of challenges there that we've had to sort of align or recalibrate our strategies against. And the biggest recalibration and the biggest focus for us is our known audience, and being as relevant as possible to that audience. It's almost a superpower that retailers have. The ad networks have their targeting opportunities, but we have a direct connection to our customers. And the only way to challenge these big spenders is to show up to those customers with what we know linked to that connection.
Thanks. That's good context. I think if we look at the slide that's on, speaking to demand and supply, it's definitely highlighted a different perspective in terms of thinking. Brands invariably have these massive budgets. In 20 years of being in this industry, all I've seen is budgets shift to digital. They've become significantly bigger relative to Meta and Google, and essentially they're growing every single day. On the supply side of things, right? What people have naturally had to become very aware of is data. Okay, and data, as they say, is the new oil. Point being is, do you think retailers have a place to play with the significant data that they hold? Zach?
Absolutely. There's this role that we have to play in terms of what we can offer the brands. There's this role that we have to play in terms of what we can optimize and enhance for our customers. And at the core of our ability to do that is the data that we're able to supply. And the opportunity is endless. I think it hasn't actually been fully realized in South Africa. I know globally there is a much bigger uptake in terms of the supply and the value of the data available. And I think something important to call out in terms of the access that we have to this data is that for years, media has been optimized against impression delivery, right? It's very easy to reach an audience that you say you're going to reach. The problem is that the optimization happens around marketing activity and not marketing results. And the best way to achieve those results is with the quality of the data that you have and are able to provide the brands that you service, the retailers that you're strategizing for. And ultimately, I think there's this sort of responsibility as people who are owning this data to show up in a way that's, number one, more measurable, and number two, or maybe there's no sort of preference in terms of the order of this, but with actual value and shifting a focus to an audience-centric one.
I totally agree with that. I mean, when we've been, market research around the world in terms of retail media networks, probably the most prolific one globally is probably Walmart, where the utilization of their data has garnered an internal business that's probably the most profitable within their stack of businesses, and growing significantly so. So I totally agree with the place of retail and retail data and where that's going to play within the local ecosystem. And I agree with you that that's early days. El, moving on to you. So Flow, as I said, plays in the data ad tech ecosystem. I approached you a couple of months ago and had an idea as to how we could incorporate Hello Peter's rich data into the media realms. Why did you agree to embark on that opportunity, and how's that opportunity been for Hello Peter?
So we've been looking for ways, non-intrusive ways, to try and figure out how we can augment or monetize or commercialize our mass consumer data that we have on our platform. We kind of sit at a very interesting position. Hello Peter never aligns itself directly with the brand. It would never market something to its customer base, directly, and push something directly. So it's been a very difficult journey to figure out this kind of non-intrusive, POPI compliant way to be able to utilize this data. And what I loved about this opportunity was it gives brands this kind of ability. It's a win-win for both consumers and businesses. So on the one side, it gives brands this opportunity and it empowers them to hyper-target audiences using our first-party data off our site. So, our site offers, there's a lot of ads on our site, and you can, we do kind of sell premium campaigns on the site, but it's really focused on our site and, directing it at the traffic that sits on the site. But we've got, well over 1 million consumers who engage on our platform every single month, who are high intent kind of audiences that are looking to either search for a business or making informed purchasing decisions. And so we understand what they're browsing on the platform. 95% of our traffic is browse traffic, with 5% of the traffic being, people writing reviews. And so this gave us a great opportunity to begin this journey of monetizing this data. And on the consumer side, it's a win for them in that they're getting kind of highly contextual, relevant ads, that kind of they may engage with or want to engage with. So we feel it's a win-win for both, and Hello Peter still remains completely independent, allowing consumers to utilize our content to make the decisions they want to make, not pushing anything down their kind of throats. So yeah, and it's been a very quick and rapid growth over the last 3 months of doing this together. So we can see how valuable it is, and the success stories that you've already kind of are collating has been phenomenal.
Yeah, I think very well articulated. I've been around a while now. My daughter keeps reminding me of my gray hair every morning. And Hello Peter has been around for how long as a brand?
It's the year 2000. Started in 2000.
Okay, so that's and it's notorious within the industry, right? What do you think some of the misperceptions are relative to the Hello Peter audience, relative to maybe how it was perceived many years ago, and where's that standing today?
That's a great question. The founder, who was really a visionary, Peter Chills, whom I've got a very good relationship with even to this day. Yeah, he founded Hello Peter in the year 2000, pre-social media. And so his kind of mission for Hello Peter was to upgrade service levels of brands. He felt that, the general consumer had no way of holding brands accountable. And so he started Hello Peter, and the way in which he began was just allowing consumers to write complaints, as it were, because the truth is, if you are reactive, you will just only get complaints for your business. If you become proactive, and I'll get to this point just now, you're able to then kind of develop a more balanced representation of your brand. But and he scaled that very quickly in terms of its attraction to consumers and wanting to engage on the platform, to hold these brands accountable, or to try and get some response from them. And then from there, he started pulling brands in to kind of manage that reputation. And so as social media has developed and kind of, made our world so interconnected, it became very important to kind of manage their reputation on Hello Peter. I saw the opportunity with Hello Peter. It was at the time when Google reviews and Facebook reviews were beginning to come out. And I saw this opportunity to kind of change this narrative, to become a more balanced platform, to provide businesses opportunities and tools to be able to proactively collect reviews for their business. Because if you are proactive, every business has got customers along their user journey or customer journey where they are satisfied and they love the business and have a great interaction with the business. And so this ability to be able to target them at those points of satisfaction was critical. So we began developing a software as a service platform that gave these businesses tools to be able to easily collect reviews in a friction-free manner. Today, as an example, WhatsApp, our WhatsApp bot generates 40% of our reviews. We get a review less than every minute on the platform. So you can imagine how this has been adopted from a business perspective to be able to do that. And so, and the reason why this is very powerful, there's a few, but one of the key reasons is that it gives businesses this opportunity to build social proof of their business in this kind of digital world where, back in the day, word of mouth was your most powerful form of marketing. Today, reviews are effectively word of mouth Uberfied, right? That's what they are. And this ability to kind of get into tentacles everywhere online is very easy. And so, the importance that consumers place on these reviews is very high before making purchasing decisions. It's becoming even, increasingly so. So, yeah, I mean, I think that's the big misconception was that we're solely a complaints platform where it's transitioned to become a much more balanced platform. 92% of reviews historically were complaints. Today, it's 60% positive reviews, 40% negative reviews. And this just shows the power of being proactive with your online reputation.
Yes. I think I was also reading an article where it suggested that 70% of people actually check reviews before making a purchase. And I've certainly used Hello Peter on many occasions just exactly to do that. I mean, take a lot of e-commerce websites are geared for that kind of thing too. And I think it holds people true. But it is a very close inflection point to getting to a potential customer before they make that decision of where they actually spend their money. Speaking of which, Dean, brands using their own data versus audience rental, or both, what does that mean for you? I mean, you practically are executing on these campaigns for big brands. How have you deployed strategy and how's that benefited or otherwise your clients?
Yeah, listen, I think first-party data has probably become one of the most important elements of digital marketing, and at least within the funnel. And effectively, it's become a strategic layer sitting on top of your traditional targeting types like interest targeting and in-market audiences, those kind of things. There's two problems here that I want to just quickly address. So I think with first-party data, obviously, what you're going to be doing with that is effectively remarketing, right? You want to try and get those users back onto your site. In order for you to use that data on an acquisition level, you're going to be using something like a lookalike audience, right? But effectively, you're still sort of fishing in your own pond. That's sort of why we've adopted the strategy of renting sort of audiences from you guys, like from Flow. And basically, with that being applied over the last couple of months, we've managed to almost double our return, and we've halved our acquisition costs. And the reason why this works, or at least what you want to try and get out of this is, you want to isolate your first-party data audiences from the third party. So effectively just running exclusions and make sure that you don't have sort of an overlap between those audiences. But I think one of the most important things here is to make sure that you've got measurement in place, right? As soon as you've got measurement in place and you understand what works and what doesn't work, you can compile some form of case study, and then you can effectively see how good your results are. Yeah.
Makes total sense. And so the challenges of first-party data, right? Not everyone has it, okay? In terms of fishing in their own pond, right? So for them, naturally, an audience rental approach would be the only thing that they could look for. I think similarly, in our experience, we've seen companies that are deploying, say, a third of their marketing budgets from a digital campaign perspective to acquiring an audience, and therefore getting still much better bang for their buck with deploying the rest on the respective channels, be it Meta, Google, etc. So there's been almost a recalibration of how budgets are built in order to deliver to the appropriate KPIs that hold agencies accountable to, and or internal digital guys. Zach, does Woolworths change their digital advertising strategy over this period? And can you share one or two learnings? I mean, we're going into Black Friday. I mean, this has been going on a couple of years now. I think it's it's ratcheted up every single year. A lot of noise there. How do guys compete?
Sure. So I think what's important to note is that when we speak about this period of time, it actually started on Tuesday with Heritage Day. When we speak about the festive period, we speak about that moment in time where it sparks off with people celebrating. And in and amongst that moment of celebration come the different discount events, and Black Friday obviously being one of the most significant. One of our biggest shifts in strategies is getting our heads around this term that we've kind of adopted, which is called spaving, right? Spending to save, and how the current economic climate has kind of driven the consumer, specifically in the retail space, to plan very specifically for the discount event. And Black Friday is like this perfect moment in time where people can actually buy things that what used to be, let's call it high-end goods, like a new television or a new fridge or a new washing machine. If you look at Google data, I think the most purchased items in the past couple of years have been nappies and toilet paper, which means you've got to show up in a relevant way. And our biggest shift in terms of knowing this is how we show up to customers with that level of relevancy. Times are tough, right? And we are not a discount business. We do play in the event. We have to. We're a retailer. And part of being relevant is offering the customer a discount of sorts. But we also want to make our full price product as appealing as possible and get people to shop us regularly over that period of time in the way that they would normally shop us. And the main tactic there is showing up in a hyper enhanced, personalized way. I don't want to go into give away too much, you know, they're probably competitors listening, but
Yes.
With our first party data and with what we know about our customers' shopping behavior, we've got multiple solutions in place that are able to layer what our discounts are with sort of CVM tactics that make those essentials that people are planning for more appealing from us as opposed to our competitors. And then there's also the strategy of gamifying that. And in order to do that, you're heavily reliant on first party data. It's how you can speak directly to customers, how in that communication you're able to personalize offers or vouchers. And that's the biggest shift. And just lastly, the reason I referred to it all starting on Tuesday with Heritage Day is there's multiple big moments coming up in the next few months. Another good example is back to school. Now, we all think, cool, it's happening in January where we need to start thinking about school uniforms or school lunch boxes. But if you are in a phase of spaving and there's an opportunity to shop your back to school stuff this side of the year, what more of a perfect opportunity than looking at how to activate that against Black Friday? And that's a strategy that we can only activate by knowing who are the parents shopping us, what age are their kids, how can we activate sort of sweeten against that data?
Yeah. I like that analogy. I mean, it's essentially like a slow build up. I think Black Friday has built a notion in people's heads that there's an element of saving prior to that, the expectation of discount or value, or gamification, as you put it, and then almost like a slingshot that takes that consumer all the way into next year where they've already thought ahead of the game. Where, I think 20 years ago, it was more specific, maybe, seasonal or compartmentalized into a particular quarter in which these things were happening. So I think digital has certainly sped up the game and needed to ensure people on top of it. I mean, Dean, again, you've got a lot of experience in this realm. What do you think the impact is on the new state of play in the upcoming shopper season, which is notorious for increased advertising volumes?
Listen, a lot's changed in the last almost 4 years now working at Traffic Brand. Strategies have shifted completely. Initially the idea was to sort of push messaging quite early in anticipation for something like, for example, Black Friday. But what we realized is that people are already kind of expecting, that good deals are coming and they'll flock in to buy, especially in our existing economy, right, where things are becoming a lot more expensive. People are looking for those good deals, and Black Friday would be one of those prime examples of when people are going to be purchasing. So I think from our perspective, there's no real need to overinvest, right? Instead, we need to just sort of capitalize on the existing influx of shoppers. And instead of having all of these long burst campaigns, rather have some short, impactful campaign that's going to be a lot more cost effective. And when you kind of match that with having good audience targeting and relevant messaging and good products and good service delivery, then you should be well on your way. Some tips there would be to use high quality audiences, similar to what we've been able to get from you guys at Flow. You want to have those relevant messaging, and then you want to also look at some, increasing your bids to make sure that you're showing up where you need to be. At the end of the day, the ROI that you're going to be getting from your campaigns will be worth the increases in fees in any case, especially when you build great audience groups over time.
Got you. I mean, that's a good segue into Hello Peter, El. I mean, what do you guys observe during this period? I mean, there's no doubt that there's management expectation, right, from a consumer's point of view with this massive onslaught of purchasing that goes on. What does Hello Peter have to say?
Yeah, for sure. There's no question. When we look at and sort of compare our reviews and sort of traffic in the November, December period versus kind of even October, September, reviews, particularly in the retail category, increased by on average 60% over that period. Very much, as Dean alluded to, around service delivery is critical. At the end of the day, businesses are run by human beings, and human beings do make mistakes, and that's okay. It's okay to make mistakes, but to be proactive in communication with your customers to ensure that you are able to deliver on the promise is crucial. And if you don't, certainly go out of your way to try and make that wrong right. So there's huge volumes of sort of traffic on the platform, as well as reviews, and that's sort of what we see over this period. And and actually the surge of complaints coming through versus relative to other months, which is just an inability to cope with the onslaught of this increased volumes, and through the Black Friday offerings and the discounted offerings and Christmas kind of specials and year special offerings that come.
Yeah, but I mean, it's a given, right? The failure
Sure.
of one brand to a customer is an opportunity for another to take their hand and pull them along. Dean, what is your advice as a brand client to the agencies that are on this webinar? In respect of audiences, what is a big brand's KPI? How can they help you deliver that?
Listen, I think, it's a good question. So I think over the last couple of years, automation has sort of taken over. There's a lot less of these micro improvements that you need to make within your campaigns. And I think one of the most important things that we need to focus on is really getting the correct audiences in place and having messaging that's relevant to that audience. At the end of the day, having relevant messaging paired to your correct audience will effectively help you increase your engagement rates. Having good engagement rates and good ad quality will lower your cost. And then that's going to effectively be connected to whatever your KPI is, right? Whether that's return on investment or, getting new users, or whatever the case may be. As long as you've got synergy between your targeting and your ad content, you've got good ad relevance, then you should be well on your way.
Yeah, and Zach, just to dovetail that into you, I mean, Woolworths, from what I understand, you guys run and manage your own digital affairs. But if you were speaking to agencies, how do you as a brand try and push those respective KPIs? What do you guys hold yourself accountable to?
So, yeah, I mean, great question. And I think Dean has shed some light on good practice within his space. But as you pointed out, at the core of what we need as a big brand is measurability. I think for years in the digital marketing space, and I alluded to this earlier, there was just this big focus on delivering cheap impressions. And depending on levels of digital maturity, that was often seen as a successful KPI. And I think at an agency level, that KPI has become something that, number one, is easy to deliver, and number two, agencies sort of continue to leverage. And as a big brand, that kind of limits measurability. And there's this big need for agencies to really, really shift their focus. And if they're strategists and campaign managers on the call that are servicing big brands, this focus on an audience-centric approach and being able to offer measurability against that is where the transformation has to happen. And when we are looking at post-campaign reports and we are holding ourselves accountable to the KPIs, the best way to do that as a retailer is with our sales data. At the end of the day, we need to sell our product. And that's kind of what I was speaking about initially, where the shift from marketing activity to marketing results needs to happen. And at the core of that, again, and I'm repeating myself, is the opportunity to measure correctly. So I would just implore that transformation amongst agencies, audience centric. That's the key.
Got you. Dean, what is your most important buyer behavior insights in 2024?
Yeah, listen, I think buyer behavior insights. It's an interesting question. Marketers, I think at the end of the day, we need to pick our strategy, right, during peak season. And I think with the economy, again, the way that it is at the moment, people generally look for good deals and good pricing. And I think again, referring to what I said earlier, if we've got good quality products and good service delivery, and you kind of state that and put that forward, then you should be well on your way. Again, I think people, generally speaking, are looking to buy through loyalty, and there's some social proof element to that as well. I always use the example, if we want to refer to Temu again, I would have never purchased from Temu unless, I've seen my mother, for example, she bought from Temu a while ago. And, she said like, no, it was fine, but the products that she got wasn't all that good. So obviously I'm never going to try that. But again, I think if there's good social proof and if you're delivering good quality products and good services, then you'll still see your people coming back and buying from you.
Yeah. Are you using first-party data and campaigns for both awareness and performance?
Yes, absolutely. So from an awareness perspective, we kind of create lookalike audiences. And I think that's important. From a remarketing element, obviously there's two ways in which you can do that. Either you're going to be using your remarketing group within a performance element. So you're connecting that to a bid that's related to return on ad spend, or you're just going to be pushing some other awareness layer, right, and using a CPM bid format. So that's just on a remarketing perspective. And then obviously we create some form of lookalike audiences as well. All that basically means is that the system is going to take that information and it's going to compile an audience that looks very similar to the first party data that you supplied it with, and it'll go and find those users. Again, we use that on both an awareness as well as a consideration level, and remarketing.
Got you. And El, just in terms of particular sectors that are kind of high trafficked within the Hello Peter environment, what is it? Insurance, finance? I mean, other than retail, what else?
Yeah, insurance, internet and telecoms, retail, financial services, automotive. Those are kind of your main kind of categories. But we agnostic. I mean, we kind of flow through the gamut. But those are generally our highest both from review and browse categories.
So Hello Peter is a very high traffic website with, I think, over 1 million uniques a month. Is that right?
Cool.
I mean, do you have perpetual complainers or perpetual reviewers? How do you segment that type of audience, just to give the audience over here some kind of flair of ratings? Is it a once-off, etc.?
So we try and segment our kind of reviewer base into various cohorts based on their interactions on our platform, what they're writing about, as well as their how often they are writing. We have got as much as kind of very high sort of cohort 25 plus reviews kind of in a year per person. We sort of average it around in the kind of mid-range to high. We probably average it around 7 reviews per person. But we sign up 25,000 new consumers every single month. These are brand new reviewers every single month that we sign up, and Hello Peter does not spend 1 rand on its marketing. Certainly on our B2C side. On the B2B side, we spend a little bit, but so it's grown dramatically over the past 5 years, both in terms of reviews are kind of 3 times the numbers, and traffic's probably around double, which kind of just speaks to the importance of reviews and how people are using them to make informed purchasing decisions, or verify if they can go and kind of interact with this business, or can they compare this business to another business. One business without a review versus a business with a review, there's a big difference. That will naturally draw the consumer to the business with review. And a balanced platform, a balanced business profile is much more powerful than a too good to be true profile. So you don't want to see too many good reviews on a profile without any negative reviews. It's just too good to be true. So we found that the perfect blend is a balance between positive and negative reviews. Manage those negative reviews and be proactive to collect the positive reviews. Yeah.
And I mean, when you typically search a review on Google, I mean, Hello Peter features essentially at the top just organically, right?
Correct. So Google loves content. It's you know, it rates our content very highly. There's constantly new content being added to the platform, and that's how we attract. And a lot of most of our traffic's organic search. Simply because of that, both, you know, that's how we attract businesses coming onto the platform. Very often they'll search for their business online, and Hello Peter will rank above their own business, which gives, you know, utilizing Hello Peter in a way in which it's good for your business, gives your business this opportunity to rank in organic search very easily, simply through Hello Peter. We have over 1 billion search results in Google over the 365-day period. I mean, that's a fortune of search results. So yeah, we kind of do show up almost everywhere, and it allows consumers to find you. So it's very important to have this consistent online reputation. There's no good, you know, people say, yeah, I can just use Google reviews or just use Facebook reviews, but the truth is consumers go to where they want to go to, and you have to have this consistent sort of online profile. And by the way, you know, Hello Peter's tools allow you to manage Google and Facebook reviews in one environment and collect on those platforms as well. So it's kind of this one inbox for all your reviews.
Right. I mean, I see a question here from Tian van Zyl, just in terms of how one segregates or segments the different audiences on Hello Peter. So, I mean, as you know, it's been tagged up your website for us to ensure that we know and understand exactly the consumer journey to each one of the cohorts within your environment, from insurance, automotive, or any other landing proposition within the environment. So it's highly, highly targeted. I mean, to that end, Dean, you know, the audiences certainly within Flow's marketplace, how have you gone about strategically taking a view of which audiences are right for the brands you represent?
Yeah, so I think there's a level of interest that takes place here. So, you know, if you understand that certain audiences view specific content online, like that would be step one. I think, you know, when it comes to your own first-party data, for example, you want to kind of look at which people are purchasing what online, or through your own site, right? And where do they prefer to go, and or what do they prefer to go and buy? Is it essential items? Do they generally shop for high-ticket items? And you can kind of defer or infer that, you know, these audiences match specific sort of buyer behavior types. And that's sort of how we segment it at the end of the day. We try and keep it simple as well. I think what's important to know and to understand is just to not overcomplicate it either. You don't want, you know, 10,000 verticals. You maybe want to just segment them within 5, 6, 7 groups, whatever works with your specific budget. And you also don't want those groups to be too small, right? You want to have enough people to advertise to, and in order for your budget to effectively be spent at the end of the day. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's very well articulated. In our instance, we've always said, you know, audiences enable brands to get closer to the coalface of high intent. And, you know, brand strategists, I mean, it's very difficult to sell silver bullet, but certainly what brands want and strategists apply their mind is to how do you get your client unfair advantage? Because anyone can go on Meta and Google and advertise and try and outbid and, you know, strategically come up with a good call to action or price point, whatever the case may be. But I think insofar as an audience is concerned, what I really loved about the different audience partners Flow has is that they wake up every single day, much like Alon, and he's got to concentrate on building Hello Peter and Hello Peter's proposition to his customer, and, you know, the delivery to Hello Peter's promise. And the fact that is a well-refined audience that plays directly into a brand strategy, which is perpetually changing. I mean, Alon's getting 25,000 new, did you say a day or a month? A month, eh?
A month, 25,000 new reviews a month, yeah.
A month, which means that is an entirely new opportunity for the brand to retarget an entirely new hyper intent audience. And yeah, I think, again, to Tion's point over there, it's really, really refined and targeted. Storms asked the question over here, what are the common mistakes brands make when starting with first-party data, and how can they be avoided? Dean?
Common mistakes. Sure, I think, you know, at the end of the day, people don't really segment. It's easy to just get a big list, and then you think, okay, fine, we've got a single list that's maybe 50,000 strong, and you just load that list onto a campaign, and then you push ads out. I think that's probably the biggest mistake people make. Segmentation is super important, and the last thing that you want to do is, you know, span your user base. Again, we want to go back to what I mentioned earlier, in that the messaging is super important when it concerns the type of audience that you're dealing with. With respect to the previous question as well, you know, when you're dealing with specific high LSM audiences, and you understand that they're in a specific bucket and they buy high ticket items, you want to kind of push that forward to them. So yeah, again, segmentation, super important.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, and I think it's forever creative, right? I mean, you'll try an audience, and it doesn't mean to. It may have certain results relative to what one's anticipating. It could be very wrong too. But the fact that you are able to play with data partners of this nature allows you to try and test different sets of essential custom audiences out of their bouquet, which is the gift that keeps on giving. I actually had a client write to us yesterday, a particular FMCG in the alcohol brands, where they were getting a 2.9x more effective click-through rate relative to using audiences, which is significant. I mean, this was their first foray into this. Tian's got a question for me. For any brand with volume, consider renting out audiences. Is this new commercial outcome for brands? Is it a strategic position for brands to drive healthy audience behavior in their domains? So the brands renting it, are you referring to the likes of a Hello Peter, Dion? Correct, yes. So I think it's twofold. So, Flow's a business has got technology that enables companies to turn on retail media. So our view has been that the whole market is essentially moving towards a retail media environment, meaning that a retailer, Woolworths, et cetera, can become a publisher in their own right. In that respect, if you use Woolworths as an example, they have the ability, because they're sitting on a wealth of data, to turn on such a business model if they so choose. Their what we call core and adjacent brands. A core brand would be the likes of a Unilever, something that they sell on their shelves, retargeting a Woolworths audience by way of example. Similarly, an adjacent brand may be an insurance company who feels, to Dean's point, that the LSM that Woolworths represents is the appropriate audience for them to retarget their audience. So in that instance, it would be new revenue in a retailer's world. Similarly, it would drive traffic back to a retailer's e-commerce environment. So the traffic boost over there is significant, both for the brand, i.e. a Unilever, to sell more product, and equally for a retailer to sell a whole lot of new product, because invariably you would go and your basket wouldn't just contain one item. So the business model is a fewfold. We've seen this happening abroad significantly. And similarly, if you take a Hello Peter, who's not in e-commerce and retail, in their instance, they have the ability to turn on retail media in their world. An example would be restaurants, for instance, would be able to advertise retargeting a Hello Peter audience for people who were commenting on restaurants, and that would, again, drive additional revenue into Hello Peter's environment. So there are different ways, shapes, and forms, and I think the ultimate thing over here is to create relevance to their audiences. I think no one on the call over here is looking to bastardize the data in which they've spent years and years and years cultivating, but to ensure that there's relevance associated with a commercial model that makes sense to all the role players around. Hopefully that gave you an insight into what's going on. We've got a couple of minutes to spare over here. If there are more questions, please post them. Well, while we wait, maybe, in signing off, Zach, we had a chat before this, and you were speaking of, and you alluded to it just now, just in terms of digital maturity and the importance associated with that, right? We found over the last couple of months the notion of the term audience rental is certainly new within the market. We're trying to get it out there and educate people as to the power of data and first-party data and how this ecosystem can work in the media world. What's your experience, and what do you want to highlight over there?
I mean, you spoke to it in your answer to Tian, but the opportunities for new revenue streams linked to that increase in digital maturity, there's so much to be unlocked there. And I think the more brands or retailers understand about, or kind of have in their arsenal, the power of their audiences, the more revenue opportunities there are to be unlocked. You referred to two of them, the one being the actual monetization of the audience, the other being the increased traffic to a platform and what that could ultimately result in. And at the core of this is the knowledge of what power those audiences hold. And, key sort of terminologies that were raised throughout this discussion linked to this are the sort of high intent and relevancy linked to those audiences. And when looking at the opportunities to rent them out or utilize them against campaign objectives. That's where this power sits, is really targeting a high intent customer with relevant communication. So your ability to know that and activate against it will set you up for multiple new successes.
Great, thanks. There's one last question that I'll deal with, Kayleen. How often would you suggest checking or cleaning up your data for accuracy and quality to avoid, it's jumping up my screen, targeting an outdated segment? I think it's also relative to what your business is. We typically look at like a 3-month cycle. If you look at property, for instance, you're in a cycle of pursuing or perusing property for a couple of months. You may be selling before you buy. In Alon's instance, if it's a review, it may be a shorter window period relative to that person's view on a particular product or what it is that they're doing in their life. So I think it is subjective as to how often one looks at an audience and the relevance of such an audience. There's another question over here. What are some of the metrics to track when using first party to measure the success of personalized marketing campaigns? Yeah, I think we did discuss that. Invariably we've experienced in our world that our clients are creating separate campaigns and holding those campaigns accountable to what they already know. The benchmarks are already there, and they're taking a view, well, how does this compare to what they already know? And invariably it's delivering, as I mentioned earlier, we got a message from a client yesterday, got 2.9 more effective click-through rate, which was their particular metric in that instance, which was significant relative to spending less money to get more bang for their buck. So I think in closing, it's been a wonderful discussion over here, guys. I've thoroughly enjoyed it. We've had over 100 people on this call, so it's clearly, and I've held your attention for most of it. We've had brands, media agencies, clients direct, CEOs, CMOs, strategists, and business owners. So it's been a real plethora of different minds on the call. Post this, everyone will get an email with this recording so you can share it amongst your colleagues. And we hope to have a series of these in the coming months. I want to thank everybody, Dean, Alon, Zach, my team, who put this together. And till next time.